I've met so many people who are the products of dismal family situations and a failed yeshiva system. I'm not in any way seeking to diminish or trivialize the pain of those that have survived difficult parents or bad rebbeim. The pain is real. It is emotionally draining, enervating, and taxing to grow up as a child subject to excessive criticism, to belittlement, and to demeaning treatment. It's horrible. It really is terrible. But let's analyze it. There are two ways to react. One way is to throw in the towel and to resign oneself to a life of hostility, resentment, and suffering. But there's another method, and that method requires a very difficult and arduous choice that only you can make. In the inner recesses of your soul, you have to be able to make this choice. And it's what I call MO. Now I know that in Latin, MO stands for modus operandi, which is very, very closely related to the exercise that I'm going to give you. It's not specifically modus operandi, but it's very close. And MO stands for move on, which happens to be the best modus operandi to follow in this world, to move on. Don't stagnate. Don't fume forever. Don't be stifled and don't be zapped. Don't lose your luster and your joie de vivre, but move on, because you could become so great despite the challenges, and perhaps because of those challenges and because of that suffering. The Torah tells us that Yosef HaTzadik said something unbelievable with the birth of his son Menashe. He says, Ki nishani Elokim es kol amali ve'es kol beis avi. That God has allowed me to forget all my struggles and my entire father's household. Now, that's a very, very troubling statement to make, especially from somebody as pious and faithful as Yosef HaTzadik. After all, Yosef followed every halachic nuance that he learned in his father's household and was exceedingly loyal, even in the nadir of contamination of impurity of tumah. In the most decadent place in the world, Mitzrayim, Yosef was steadfast. And Yosef was resolute in his conviction to be a Torah Jew. And yet he says that with the birth of Menashe, I've forgotten my father's household. The Ger Rebbe has such an enlightening idea here. He says that what Yosef was saying was that no matter all the mistreatment, perhaps we could even use a terminology because it did border on abuse, all the travails, all the challenges that he experienced in his father's household, he was ready to forget, to move on, to let go. The Sfas Emes once said to somebody who came to him and complained about the fact there was an elderly person that was losing his memory. Sfas Emes said, perhaps very cryptically, he said, perhaps sometimes having a great memory is a liability, is not an advantage. Sometimes it's good to forget. And that's what Yosef was saying. Yes, I suffered, but it's time to move on. It's time to grow from the experience. And it's time to become greater and bigger. Our greatest Gedolim weren't necessarily born in pristine environments. There's a lot of critique against certain biographies because it portrays and depicts the Gedolim as being basically pure from birth without any type of challenge, which wasn't the case. You want to study, for example, the life of the Rambam, arguably the most legendary, iconic Torah leader in the past 1,000 years. The Rambam was born in Cordoba, Spain. Now, there are controversial statements made in different Svarim which seem to have very, very legitimate Makoros, very legitimate sources. And it seems that the Rambam was born to his father of Maimon. His mother was the daughter of a butcher with no pedigree, with no yichus, nothing illustrious. And Nebuch, his mother, dies in childbirth. He is ridiculed because he is the son of the daughter of the butcher. His father remarries, the stepmother persecutes him, it seems. His father, for some reason, is more indifferent, maybe doesn't know what's going on. The Rambam, according to some sources, runs away. He flees from his house as a young child. He could very well throw in the towel Go off the derech. He ends up in a beis medrash for safe haven. Perhaps it's the only place where a homeless vagrant, so to speak, could sleep. And he ends up in the protective embrace of none other than the Heilige, the Holy Ri-Nagash, who invigorates him, who resuscitates him, revives him, and gives him chizuk, and gives him the will to go on. At 13 years old, the Rambam and his family were persecuted, expelled by the Almohads, the fanatical Muslims. And they are rendered into nomads. The Rambam is fleeing at a young age from place to place. He's in Fez, Morocco. He's in Eretz Yisrael. Eventually Alexandria, Egypt, and perhaps near Cairo as well. No identity, no stability, so to speak. He ends up marrying. His wife and 2 young children, unfortunately, tragically, die in a plague. His beloved brother, David, who supported him, who he was a father to, his little brother David, perishes at sea. It's crippling, it's debilitating, it's devastating for the Rambam. So many challenges. But what happens? The Rambam doesn't go off. The Rambam doesn't throw in the towel. Despite all the challenges, or perhaps in light of all the challenges, he becomes the most legendary leader of Klal Yisrael. Let's move to a gadol who was less than 200 years ago, the Chasam Sofer, Rav Moshe Sofer of Pressburg. The Chasam Sofer had every reason to give it all up. He had every reason to resort to the worst things and to lose faith and to lose his inspiration. As a young child, as a little boy, the Chasam Sofer heard his Rebbe say the pasuk that Adam was created afar min hadama, dust, earth from the ground. And in the Chasam Sofer's mind, it sounded superfluous and redundant. And he challenged, he asked his Rebbe, I'm sure he said it politely. And he said, why does it have to say afar min hadama? Isn't it axiomatic? Isn't it a given? And the Rebbe excoriated him for it, lambasted him. He had to leave that Rebbe. His father became his Rebbe. Then one day, he's a little older, and the Chasam Sofer is giving a public discourse. And he says something that seemed to be irreverent to his father about one of his forebears. He was upslugging, as we say. He was trying to infer something. He was trying to repudiate or answer in a Talmudic extrapolation. And his father went ahead and publicly humiliated him and slapped him. The great Rav Nosson Adler, the gadol at the time, said to the Chasam Sofer, you must cut off ties with your father. He's not healthy for you. And he heeded his Rebbe's warning. And the father listened as well. He had no further contact with his father. He was under the auspices, under the aegis, under the tutelage from then on of Rav Nosson Adler. He could have felt violated. He could have felt a sense of indignity. He could have felt tremendous pain and humiliation. And he could have made a very big indictment and condemnation against his father. And his father represented Torah. Instead, he harnessed his faith and realized that the Torah is greater than any single individual. And he moved on. The great Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, our generation, our century, known for his piety, known for being so altruistic, forgiving, kind, sweet. The Gadol Hador. When he was a child, his Rebbe leveled an accusation against him that he betrayed the Rebbe and went to the fair in the city. The Rebbe had told everybody that they're not allowed to go to a certain fair. They have to come to yeshiva. That morning, Rabbi Yaakov was late to school. And the Rebbe was convinced he was late because he went to the fair, when in essence, in reality, he was late because he was helping somebody, he was doing a chesed for somebody. And the Rebbe didn't believe, and the Rebbe called him a liar and slapped him. And Rabbi Yaakov said that he never forgot that. He never forgot the shame. He never forgot the pain. He never forgot the indignity. But did he throw in the towel? No. Did he give it all up? No, he became Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. He moved on. We all have challenges. We all experience frustration and pain. These challenges and negative experiences can be the motif that defines our lives, and it could be the beginning of the end of our spiritual and rewarding lives. Or these challenges can be the springboards and building blocks. That can be the stepping stones for our greatness. These challenges can be the directive that makes us more sensitive, more attuned to others' pain, more grounded, more caring, more understanding, more empathetic, more compassionate to others that are suffering. And it could teach others what a true Torah Jew is all about. The sixth day of Sivan was the day that Moshe Rabbeinu was marked for extinction. It was the day that he was cast into the Nile River to be annihilated, to be killed. And yet that same day, 80 years later, was the most momentous, colossal day in world history when Moshe Rabbeinu on the sixth day of Sivan brings down the Torah to Klal Yisrael. Rav Mordechai Banet, Rav of Nikolsburg, said that is why on Shavuos, the sixth day of Sivan, when we commemorate the giving of the Torah at Sinai, we decorate and embellish the shuls with greenery. You know why, he said? Not to commemorate Sinai that had greenery, but to remember that 80 years prior, Moshe Rabbeinu was languishing. Moshe Rabbeinu was moribund. Moshe Rabbeinu was about to be exterminated in the Nile that had greenery, and that seemed to have been the worst day of his life when, in essence, in a twist of irony and fate, Basia, the princess of Egypt, takes him. He's raised in the most foreign, antagonistic environment in the house of Pharaoh itself. He ends up, according to the Medrash, becoming the king of Ethiopia. He's in Midian. His life takes on such a circuitous route. But how does he become the greatest Navi in world history? Peh el peh adaber bo, mouth to mouth. Do I speak with him, says Rabbi Shalom, says God. How? Because of that fatal, almost near fatal day. On the sixth day of Sivan, when he was a baby, 3 months old, being cast into the Nile. Yes, his life was fraught with challenges. Yes, his existence was challenged day by day. The turbulence, the travails, the vicissitudes were agonizing, tormenting, torturous. But that's what made him into Moshe Rabbeinu, where no one else in the world would have the power. No one else in the world would have the understanding to decipher and decode, to penetrate, and to be the greatest shepherd of Hashem's flock, the Jewish people. Your greatest struggle and challenge may very well be the reason why you're here and what you're supposed to accomplish. As an inventor, Thomas Edison tried 1,000 times to invent the light bulb. And somebody once, an objective bystander once asked him, how does it feel? What does it feel like that you failed 1,000 times? And Edison said, I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps. Wow. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps. I didn't fail 1,000 times. You didn't fail. No. These are steps to your greatness. These are steps for your luster. These are steps for you to shine. Chassam Sofer says something utterly amazing. The name that Ribono Shel Olam, that Bashefer, that God introduces himself to Moshe Rabbeinu, is Eke Asher Eke, which loosely translated is, I will be what I will be. Says Chassam Sofer something absolutely monumental and powerful. He says, you know what that means? Hashem was saying to humanity, To all of us, Yidden, to all of us. No matter what your struggle, no matter what your negative experience, no matter what pain you've been through from family, from school, from your whatever it is, if you're willing to step to the plate and you're willing to say, Eke, I will be, you're willing to try to make a new beginning, you're willing to forge ahead, you're willing to MO, to move on, and you step up and you say, I will be, says the Rebbe Shalom back, Eke, if you will be, I will be. I'm going to have your back. I will be there for you in every way. You will see siyata d'shmaya. You will see heavenly divine assistance. You will see a mazel she'en kamo like nothing else. Just say, I will be. And God says back, I will be. Today is Asar B'Tevis. Asar B'Tevis was the beginning of the end for the Beis HaMikdash. It was the day that Nebuchadnezzar besieged Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, which lay the groundwork for the Churban. Let's resolve today, no matter how hard it is, no matter our pre-existing condition, our pain, let's make a resolution today not to allow Churban into our lives. No matter how hard it is. Don't let negative experiences color you. Don't let bad things blind you. You have a bright, beautiful, and noble future. Don't be the one to lay the groundwork for the beginning of your own end. Use your experiences. Use the composite of your life experiences to become stronger and greater. Harness your energy and faith to become a leader. And let this time be the beginning of a glorious future. Thank you.